All right, everybody. We're just starting a couple minutes early, and I'm waiting for my lady and Sue. Are you in the room yet? Hello, hello. Well, wouldn't you know? Let's see here. Sue Coop. And so we're on tonight on a couple of different platforms. The problem is that StreamYard has had a problem with Facebook. So if you could go over to YouTube and find this presentation, then you can write comments. Sue and I are going to be talking. Let's see, where is she here? Everybody. Sue, are you here? Don't you love live, everybody? And I know most of you know me. I did get some notifications that some of my friends are going to be here tonight. Sue, are you here yet? Anyway, so I guess I'll be talking until she shows up. Split the screen. Uh, hmm. So I'm waiting for Sue to come on. I may have to start over if this doesn't continue correctly. So wouldn't you know we would have issues here? Let's see here. Maybe I'll block the screen until 6 o'clock live in a couple more minutes here. So anyway, somebody has asked me about the background. I have banners up. I have wooden shells in the back of me that are full of kids' pictures. And someone said, well, we want to see the kid pictures. I said, I don't want you kind of distracted. And she's not in here yet. Okay. So the layout. Well, she's not here yet. Okay, kids. Group layout. Well, I can talk for a few minutes. She and I are going to do something tonight about ghost. And we were going to talk about synchronicity. So synchronicity is something that happens to all of us, but we don't pay attention. And then when you pay attention, you go to a place that's saying, ooh, that was strange. I wonder why those pieces came together like this and this end result happened. So Sue Coop has a very interesting story. I met her husband. Um, Seems like I'm not lined up yet. Seems like her husband had been coming to me for a while and he went through a divorce. And I kept telling him about this wonderful woman he was going to meet. I didn't know her name, but I described her. And I thought it was kind of crazy that as time went on, I got to know more and more. And he unfortunately passed away. And then she came to a place where she said, I need to tell you some stories about him, that he had been hit by lightning and the health issues. And then she started sharing with me, hello, I am here. How do I click on you to come into chat room? Uh, so there you are. This may be very short, and then we'd have to try it again. Ah, Lord. Don't you love live? I know Shar says to me sometimes, why is it always live? Oh, hello, hello. Oh, hello, you too. Uh, we got people in StreamYard. Hello to you too. Everything is double. Okay. Sue, if you can hear me, tell me how to bring you in, because you should have come right in. Um, invite. Nope, that's not it. So everybody, it's happening. This is so embarrassing. For you who don't know me, I do have a website, nancymatz.com. I was born with this condition, found out what it was as years went through. In 84, I predicted a murder. And it was to a friend of mine. We lived in, I worked out of Auburn Face Hospital. And what happened was I was in the office and I was talking to her and I tried to leave. It wouldn't work. I couldn't leave. And so anyway, this is not working, everybody. Sue, if you're trying to figure out, and I got a note to Shar also. Um, no, she's not answering. So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. Anyway, in 1984, predicted a murder. I was talking to my friend, and I said to her, unfortunately, it's going to be a death in your family, and you're going to have to handle the paperwork, but don't dismay because everything is the way it's supposed to be. And that night, there was a murder in her family. And this was in 84. In 87, I diagnosed with cancer, stage 3 plus. And after that, I realized how important life was. And I got divorced. And then a year and a half later, the doc said, I think you're going to live. So I said to the universe, thank you for my life and my sanity. And if you wish, I'll work for you the rest of my life. And I was directed 5 days later to the Spirit of Grace Church in Citrus Heights, California. Yes, there is an error on Facebook. And Sue says, keep talking. Just today, Streamyard is having a problem with Facebook. And I didn't do the research, but someone I know who does a lot of StreamYard and is connected to Facebook, YouTube, and other places, several, in fact. She sent me a little note and said, unfortunately, Sue, I see your question. Is this going to be just me tonight? How come? Is StreamYard having more problems and they're not telling everybody? So this is a one-time only issue with StreamYard. So Sue's writing a note in here. What are ghosts? I love the idea that we survive. I come from a background that did not believe in this. So when I got cancer, I thought that was the end of everything. And it prompted me to want to get a divorce. I think I know what's wrong, everybody. The desk, I moved it up. I need to move it down or move my seat up. Hold on. Oh. People ask me, what's the difference between a ghost and a spirit? When you pass away, your spirit does leave your body. A ghost is a person that as they leave their body, they either become afraid, they don't want to join the people that are there because they can't believe they're dead. A ghost could be somebody who says, I'm afraid to go on because if I do, I'm going to end up in hell. There's all kinds of variations. There was a movie out recently, Ghost, The Ghost, and it's about a gentleman who's in love with a woman. Then they're living together, and he goes out and unfortunately gets in a car wreck or something, and he dies. But he gets back to the house, and unbeknownst to him, it's been a while, and she moves out, and the man, he's a brother of another movie star. His first name is Casey, I think. He actually won an award for the role, in which he just stands in this house and talks. And he's covered with a sheet with 2 eyes cut out. And the realization that he couldn't go on without seeing his wife and be with her. And generations later, the house is emptied out completely. And he stands there wondering, why is he still there? And the minute he comes to the realization that he doesn't have to be in there anymore, then he passes over. And I've told people that people who are ghosts, eventually they wake up. They either wake, this is the definition I have to stay with. They either go, wonder why I'm here. And they wake up and say, well, I don't want to be here anymore. Or they become insane. And unfortunately, I've seen that happen. In the last, I would say 8 years, I saw a gentleman pass over. He was in the national news. I have to be careful. Oh, hi, Nikki. Um, he passed over. And he desperately tried to get back in his body. And then he went to this wife. And this gentleman was telling me what this gentleman went through. He said he went to the funeral, and he is very perceptive. And he could hear the man yell as he paced in front of his own coffin, I'm not dead, I'm not dead. And he witnessed his wife getting married again. And then I was finding him hiding out in the house that she shared with her new husband. Oh, I watched you on Leak Project a few times. Hi, SUM1. Nice meeting you. I love people. They give me such wonderful stories, and I learn so much. Anyway, let me finish this real quick. So the TV series called The Munsters, remember that? And there was a guy named Lurch. And I was so upset because I wouldn't be able to deal with this person because he's in another state. And I can't get ghost investigators to go to these people's homes. It wouldn't be appropriate. And I saw this man move into the house with the husband and the new husband. And he slipped into the closet and he stood there and he was quiet and he just put his head forward and he would drift out of the closet into the hallway and go back in. He'd gone insane, but a quiet insane. And then there's people, insane asylums, who are already people who are mixed up and they become spirit people. And for some reason, they stay that way for a while. They get to wake up and go on, or they become more insane because they can't get people's attention. Spirit people have said to me they don't want to be forgotten. Maybe a person that's not grounded can't get your attention, and then they go to a place of tormenting you to pay attention to them. Can you imagine 100, 200, 300 years of someone not getting attention? How disruptive could they be? And what do you say to somebody that has somebody in their home and a child moves into that part of the house? A lot of stories, a lot of stories. People want to call them demons. I do have a Catholic background. I've never, in my 32 years of doing this, I've never been approached or seen a demon. Then someone said to me once, well, you are a minister, spiritualist minister, you are in this. Maybe no one approaches you. And I says, well, that's so. Maybe so. I'm not going to say that can't happen. But what I might say is I had this told me, maybe I have a bright light. People who are what we call lost souls, that's a whole new category, a totally different story. Those are lost souls are killed in action. Battlefields, terrible accidents, not always, just once in a while. And they don't choose to look at the person. I've told the story of lost souls, and let's go over to lost souls. A lost soul, and I did this for a while, and it's not like I didn't want to continue doing it. And there is a woman who does lost souls as in the sleep mode. And I forgot what her name is, On the Fringe, something like that, where she goes into sleep mode and rescues lost souls. So this is one example. There was two young men, and I would say early 1800s, and they lived in what we call the Louisiana swamp look. And they had carved out a trunk of a tree, and it looked really good. It did a good job. To me, it was like, wow, what a good job, right? And I didn't even know that they did that. And they were what we call the alligator hunters. And they were just teenagers. And they would get the alligator, they'd skin it, and then resell the skins, I guess, And that's how they made their money. Well, they were clearly in their teens. And the one that was lost was what we call the older of the two, the bigger of the two. And I says, what are you, when he came around, he was going in circles in front of me. And I was sitting there kind of blindsided. I go, oh my God, what is this? I am always in surprise. And this man said, I saw your light and I wanted to see who you are. I want some help. I says, okay, what happened? And he says, I remember this. And I said, what did you remember? And he says, my brother, who was younger, I can't remember the age because it's been almost 25, 30 years. And he said, we got an alligator, and he bent over the edge of the boat to put a better lasso on it. And when he did, the alligator pulled him into the water. Can you imagine a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy getting pulled into the water? Well, the bigger brother jumped in after him to rescue him. And the next moment, he saw himself in that same rowboat going around circles looking for the brother. So you know what happened? Both of them died. And I said, do you have any idea how long you've been circling around in your canoe? And he tilted his head and he was thinking about it. He says, I don't know. I says, well, where's the sun? Where was the sun? He says, oh, we went out early in the morning. And I says, how long you been doing this? He says, I've been paddling for a long time. I says, if it was morning, has the sun gone up any? And he looked up and he says, no. I says, I think your brother would be waiting for you if you said to yourself, I'm stuck, I'm lost, and I don't need to be here. I don't need to be here anymore. And, I can't tell people what to do. I can only give thoughts. I said, would you think about it? How long you've been doing this? And do you think your mom and dad would be worried about you? Oh, yeah, yeah. He was very logical, very smart young man. And in some ways, I don't remember all the conversation, but I remember him disappearing. I was looking at him in this big wood boat. He was paddling with wood paddle. And he was just in shock, just paddle. And he saw me and he slowed down to talk to me. And I thought, well, if they're so lost, how is he talking to me? And I brought that up. I said, how are you talking to me? He says, I saw your light. And I says, why would I be in the swamp with a light? And I could see him tilt his head and he was thinking about it. And I says, I don't think you survived falling in the water. Oh, did I fall in the water? I said, you went after your brother. He fell in the water. Oh, he did. And then all of a sudden it went black. And he evidently left. I don't know if the brother said, oh, you can go now. Come on, let's go. Let's move on. Or whatever happened. There was another incident of this man who was leaning against a tree. And for some reason, he wasn't moving, but he was presented to me. And I went, where am I standing? And I was standing to his left shoulder, his left arm. And I could see that he had burn marks. And he was in tears. And he wasn't bawling, he was just tears. He was watching his barn burn down. And he says, I tried so hard to save my animals. And I looked at him and I talked to him. He didn't really look at me, but he knew I was standing next to him. I says, well, how long has it been burning? Long time. And how long have you been sitting here? He says, I tried to save the horses. I ran out when I got burnt. I couldn't save them. I says, how long has it been? And where's your family? How come they're not here? If they can't go in the barn, why aren't they tending to you? And he had no answer. I don't know where they were. If it was the middle of the night, you'd think they'd wake up. Were they in town? It was dusk. It was getting dark. So the flames of the barn were huge. I made him think about that. I says, as bad as you're burned, why haven't you died? And how long have you been sitting here in this semi-dark? He had no answer. And I says, I don't think you survived. I think you've been sitting here because you're worried about your animals and they're all over on the other side. And then as I'm picking it up again, I says, I want you to look around and see if you see your mom. Clearly a grandmother figure to him now, because he didn't look, but he looked middle-aged. And he says, oh, I think my mother's here. I said, would you pay attention to her and just kind of look toward her direction? And because she was to his right, but out of sight to me. And I thought, is this easy? Is this hard? Why am I seeing them? Well, it was early in the 32 years. I think it was in the early 90s. And anytime you want to get into this environment, we get so excited. I'd always been this way. And some things I've participated in and was able to do readings and things, I just took it as women, as my first son was, it's women's intuition. Well, kind of, sort of. And I remember telling people we were horse people, and I would tell them things like, if you're out there, please try not to step on a rock unless you move it to see if it's wiggling, How do you know that? Well, I just knew things, and we just didn't think anything of it until the murder and this friend's family. And I said this to my little friend. She was a little tiny woman, and about 5 other women. And it got around that Nancy said something. And it was shortly after that I saw a woman walk through the hallway, just a darling lady. And behind her was a spirit girl. And I said to this lady, I said, I knew she had 2 boys and she was unmarried. I said, are you dating anybody? In those years, having a child out of wedlock was still not good. And she says, I'm not dating anybody. I says, that was the oddest thing. I saw a female child walking behind you. Well, I eventually moved to Pollock Pines in the early 95. And I saw this lady at a grocery store in Placerville. So if you're watching, you know who exactly. And she had that child at the same age I saw her walking down the hallway. How's that possible? I looked at this girl and went, she smiled at me, gave me that acknowledged look. I doubt it, but I'd like to think that she recognized me. But I saw a child 10 years or 11, 12 years earlier. And this girl, I almost said her name. She had got married and immediately had another child. The little girl I saw walking behind her. And that's almost unbelievable. What would be your take on grief? If those that have passed, especially those who have extremely devoted relationships with those have passed, this is a really big question. That's one of the areas I've had trained in a hospice a couple of times. Death, dying, and grieving. That's a big, big topic. First off, you have to allow that person to have been in your life. You celebrate that you had the person, that the universe brought you together for a reason and a purpose. I do believe in survival. I did not believe in reincarnation. I've had a few reincarnation situations, and because I've done this for so many years, I now believe that there is continuation over and over again. And sometimes when people don't have that belief, which is really, really hard, the only way to do it is understand the only thing, and I hate this, but time does help. And I tell my ladies and gentlemen, please don't grieve in every room of the house. Build yourself a shrine, a place that you can go and do the grieving there. When you do that, that spirit person will show up. If you grieve in every part of the house, it's like being angry in every part of the house. Energy flies off you and onto the walls. And then you're in perpetual grieving status continually. And that's very hard on you because you're continually reminded. People mean well. The best thing that people do when they counsel a grieving person is not to talk. Just say you're sorry, bring a casserole, and give them hugs all they want. That's the best thing you do. We have to allow those who are passing and those in grief to do the talking. And I have found an amazing number of those who are caught unaware that the person dies. And there's so much anger. Well, you can appreciate the person who passed away sometimes has anger too. And if you have anger, you have to look at the anger as saying, you cannot be selfish because those people have had the reward of this lifetime. That was their exit point, and they now can go on. Now, can I say that without you in grieving here in the chat room? Can I say that lightly? Absolutely not. My father was killed by a drunk driver when I was 6 years old. He was only 33. And of course, that's the side of the family I got the majority of my gift on. What was curious, he was killed April 1st, 1955. He had an insurance policy he took out without my mother realizing that came effect April 1st, midnight, 1955. He was killed at 2 o'clock in the morning, driving from Las Vegas to California. And that taught me that we cannot live past the point that the universe said that your spoken word is okay. I do this for a living. I'm so grateful to be in my 70s. Hallelujah. But there's going to be a day when the universe says, you've talked to enough people. You've told your story. You've written your books. Hopefully I'll write the next 8. And they'll say, you've done enough. You can now leave. And I will be. I've told people, and this is a story, I have kissed that Blarney Stone. I've come this close to death too many times. And every time I say, well, they just don't want me yet. Just kiss it off. Yep. So even though we're aging, we're getting older, we have this going on and that going on, I revel in the idea that I get to be older. But a lot of people don't. My father was only 33, but he knew exactly when he was going to die. He did not change it. My last memory of him was to jump in his arms and say, please don't go. We'll never see you again. My next memory is my mother shaking her fist. Don't you do that anymore. Don't you do that. Because evidently I wasn't the first time. And the first time I saw a spirit person was him showing up after I had said that. And I remember seeing him thinking he looked odd. Like you talk about people with halos, it was around his whole body. And I remember thinking that was odd. And my grandmother had it reel to reel. And somewhere in her things is that tape, my talking to her and telling her that Daddy came to visit last night. And I take that story and I try to tell someone who's grieving that it's such a gift to live and such a gift to have someone in your life that when you no longer have them, you have to celebrate that they were there. That doesn't make it easier for you to have to pick up the pieces of your life and go forward. What that tells me is that now at this point in that person's partner life, it's for you. The choice of life is for you. The choices to make choices is only for you. Before you had a partner, from this point on, if you become a widow and you're grieving what we're talking about, and I'm not talking about little kids, that's really a different kind of story. Totally. I'm looking at partners here. From that point on, the universe says, now you're going to take charge of your life, man or woman. And today I just got told of a story of a man who is in business. And just last week, his wife was making dinner and he heard this thump, went in there, and she was dead on the floor from an aneurysm like that. And he was caught off guard. And if I would talk to him, I would say things like, celebrate that you chose each other, you did life. And now celebrate that you're going to be able to have more life, make choices for yourself, and be in charge of your own direction. We have to look at that. No, I don't want anybody to pass away. I want us to live forever, but it's not that. If you don't put some kind of softness to logic, they're never going to pick up the pieces and go on. There is such a thing, and I hate the words. As time goes on, we get that grief and we put it in our hand, and we let it get smaller. We don't look at it every day. The shrine isn't visited house every day, and you'll never have to get rid of that grief. What you want to do is encapsulate it and put it in your back pocket. You can always go back and grieve, but go on with your life and keep it with you, but allow it to be part of who you are. And the character of who you are is built from that incident also. Compassion. You may end up helping other people in the family. You say, I've been through it. I understand it. I know what your pain is. And then go on. Celebration of death is very important for closure. A lot of people get the ashes put in the ocean, and itself is, and I'm talking about someone in the chat room, that, what is this here? Let's see. Connection is unstable. If you are on Wi-Fi, try plugging into your router. I am plugged in. So there's something going on with StreamYard. Okay. If I disappear, everybody, write me a note, Sue. Okay. Oh, am I taking too much time? She wrote me a note. What is your opinion of seances? Queen wants to know if online seance is possible. I've seen people do that. I don't know if I would want to, only because I do believe there are spirit people. I've done, pardon me, at any moment, someone writes in that, don't do this tonight because it's not the platform. Shar of California Haunts and Matt Slosier of Sunday Night did. Both people allow me to, who's in the chat room, get the name, and then I would describe a dead person around them. Isn't that a seance? Isn't that something I do every day? Is talk to people. I talk about their dead person standing next to them. They're not dead, they're alive. How would I even know what the person of ethnicity they are? So I'm able to describe people standing next to somebody. Okay, standing next to, how can I do that if they're not alive? See? So we really don't leave. And getting back to grief one more time, they are part of your life. Talk out loud to them. If you want a question, make it short, 2-3 inch words at all. Would you rub my shoulders tonight? So you can feel them. They don't want to be forgotten, but they don't want you to be consumed by them being around you. What Dreams May Come is an excellent example of Robin Williams going to the cemetery and standing too close to the wife that's grieving over his grave. Then he knew to back off and let her stand up straight for once. That's good. Seance is kind of fun. At turn of the century, it was very, very popular to talk to the dead. I think that's very possible that the combined energies of those people, even if they're disbelievers, will give more energy to the spirit person so they can solidify who they are. That's why this is so tiring. I can do readings all day long, but if you have a spirit person you want me to connect to, I actually come to you and embrace you and then move out of you to give energy to the spirit person so I can see them better. And in that way, I can get better clarity. I am an artist. I was an artist. So I took a lot of biology, and now I know body shapes and sizes and everything. And I was part of Sue Coop's class. There was 15 people. And one gentleman said, gee, you can really describe these people. You don't seem to be intimidated. And I thought to myself, I didn't know what he meant by that, but I give a lot of visual because I can see them clearly. I also have a lot of body energy. So in that instance, is that a seance? Is seance a theatrical presentation? I think that people like the atmosphere of a seance. They like the mystique of it. Who can come through? Is there going to be any ectoplasm release so the person can be seen easier? Who's going to show up in the room? They're all waiting for somebody in the room to be talked to. In reality, what they're wanting is the energy of the room to give that spirit person more solidification so they all can see. Maybe they all need proof. I'm not against it. I don't do it because I do it so easily. I entertained for 32 years groups of people. They call me up and I had 3, 4, 5 people in chat, like a Zoom, not StreamYard, but Zoom. And I'm able to talk to them and then tell them each who the people are. So is that a seance? Possibly. Do I believe in Ouija? Do I believe in putting So my father's mother's mother was born at the turn of the century. And she was born to a woman 40-something years old. And her girlfriends, their Friday, Saturday night, I think it was, their entertainment was table tipping. That was a group of ladies whose energy where it's combined to be able to do that. It'd be the same as a seance. You combine your energy to enhance the spirit person that could be there. They were all very, very gifted peoples going back. And they lived up in New York State where the Fox sisters were. So in some ways it was okayed to have the ability to be able to do this. She talked about it. She enjoyed it as a child, watching the table pick up and bounce all over the place. I think, oh my gosh, I wish I had a clutch of girlfriends that live by that we could just do that to see what it would feel like. I just take it on myself. Um, and I've seen in my mind, I'm remembering 3 or 4 family members. And I remember seeing the people, there's 3 of them, mom and husband and wife. And I remember seeing the people standing there, as well as in person. I entertained some people up in Weed, and there was a whole room of family members. I didn't realize it. And the lady next to me said, remember, it's a circle. We just weren't putting our hands on a table. And they started talking about who was there. And the lady next to me, she says, I haven't asked anybody yet. Just a pleasant lady, but she was all excited. I haven't asked. I said, well, who do you want to know? She said, just anybody. Who's here? And this Nancy tack. This skinny little woman showed up. Nobody was. And she had her hair, curly hair, all piled up on top like this. And I gave a lot of detail what her face looked like. And they all started screaming in the room. They all recognized the woman. Is that a seance? Absolutely. So I think it's the environment, the mystique, um, the unknown. So if you light a candle, you darken the room, is it more exciting? Is it theatrical? Oh, heck, I'd like to go because it'd be fun to see what could happen. But yet, I do it all the time. So online seances, I've never done that because I do it so naturally, like in a group. Past life regression, I do it online. Absolutely. Is that the same thing? No, it isn't, but it's still communication. So I would think it would be possible to have a seance done and have those who could watch. This StreamYard, I'm hoping everybody can still see me. StreamYard is popping up messages here in front of me. It's kind of scary. Wi-Fi is not connected. I says, yes, it is. It's right to the router. So it's kind of scary. What's going on here? Sue, type in some more questions, hon. Grief is very, very important to me. I do talk to grief a lot. People do send me grief, and there's more than just the death of a spouse. There's grief of loss of job. There's grief of breaking up with somebody. There's grief of so many forms of grief, yet it still is painful. Losing a partner, a lifetime partner, being married a long time. It happens to everybody. I hope we think about it and plan it, accept it. My husband and I talk about the spirit people in this house, and he is absolutely convinced that I would not make anything up. And the people that are in the house, I told a couple of people in the complex, senior complex, I said, find out if I'm describing right. And they said, oh my God, how did you know that? I said, they're walking through my house all the time. And my husband, one night he's a guy that watches the fights, right? And on Thursday, Friday and Saturday, Thursday or Friday and Saturday, he has his drink. And of course, gentlemen, is the drink with ice cubes, right? And he said to me once, he says, I'm going to offer him a drink. What do you think? I go, oh, please. On the end of the couch, put it on the other side. And it was odd because he says to me, I saw him sit down on the other side of the couch. I went, really? It was wonderful. And he says he walks his footprint, he's got heavy footprints. And the wife has small little feet, and he can see that too. How exciting to know that we survive. Who's afraid of death then? And human beings are selfish. We don't want people to leave. We want them forever in our life. We want to go first. Well, one of you has to. And I have to convince people it's okay. And that's very difficult, very difficult. Very interesting outlook on seances. It's my opinion. I try to always say what's in my heart and what's in my mind. I don't look things up so I can talk about it. Only because I think there's so many wonderful, good people out there, and there's people in this business that have their own opinion. And if they want to put a little spookiness on the side of that, if that's their form of excitement, entertainment, that people involved see that there is survival, who am I? I'm just one person. just because I think this way, especially with ghosts and demons, that I think they're insane spirits. It really saddens me. Yet I don't have any control. There's a lot of businesses that where you have opportunities to go to big hotels and do ghost investigations. One of the little things I do that most people are, Nancy, what are you? I was involved with Port Orange Paranormal in 2011 and 12, 2010, 11, and 12. And I was a remote viewer. It was one of the first times that I realized I could do this. Now, when you do readings across the world, I got them around the world, and they say, I talked to this lady, this is an example. I have these clients that I just love, and they're in Italy. Just talking to me 25. The girls, the three girls, they live in the United States. They moved from Panama to Texas, the north, east coastline to Germany to Italy. And when she was in Panama, she's military. Her fiance was in Texas, military. I told them all the steps that they would end up in Texas. Well, their kids were, the girls were like grade school. Now they're married and having babies, right? So it's been a long time. When they moved to Italy, they got a house. I says, oh, I was driving the house, what they're going to build on it, and the beams and the backyard, the pathway. And she just went, how can you do that? I says, I know time. It doesn't matter. There's no space, time, in distance when I'm talking to somebody because I blend with you. Not nasty, but my life force blends with people. I take 100% responsibility for everything I say. What makes people like me wrong is we can get information and not interpret it correctly. What makes me do this and feel confident I'm saying it right? I have an engineering background where precision is important. I'm an artist where I was painting and drawing, and you have to be able to see clearly and put it to make it match. For some reason, my brain is that way. Left brain, right brain. Well, I don't match. I am who I am. I can't help it, right? So I've learned to interpret a little sharper. I also, when I blend with somebody, people have taught me about this forever. The brain is so interesting. Here I talk about things like techno and brain that I believe they're going to discover. Our brain is full of switches that access time. I want you everybody to think back to 5 years old, 6 years old. What was the most important thing that happened to you? First day of school? Do you remember that clearly? Absolutely. You know how you do that? You're actually in that day. You think about Kitty. I remember my first day of school. I don't remember being there. I remember walking out to the fence and my mother wasn't there. I'm standing there. I was a very tiny little thing. Long story, I had tonsil problems. So I was a little tiny waif of, you wouldn't know by now, I'm a bigger girl, but taller. But I was waiting by the fence. And that was a marker for me. So when I think of that, I can actually put myself in that spot. I can actually stand there and I can hold on to how I felt. You know how? Because our brain is actually multidimensional quantum physics type of stuff. And the other thing people say, oh no, all memories are in the brain. How can I access a photograph that you were in when you were a teenager and your grandpa's standing next to you and I can talk to you about your grandpa? How do I get into grandpa's brain? You think of it, I go back to that moment to where you're standing there looking at your grandfather. I go in that time from you, I move and blend with grandpa. And I know what grandpa was thinking and how he felt really with his wife, right? Or his projects or wishes, wants, hopes, and desires. Yes, I can do that. Kind of spooky. The next thing that happens is I like past life regression work. Oh, fun. But I do it spontaneously also. I would say for every, someone said, how many past lives in person have you done? Probably somewhere up to 50 because it's so easy for me. I would say at 32 years, probably 30 over the screen like this. But the first time I went boom like this, I was talking to a couple in New York, beautiful young, newly married, giggly together, talking to me, yay! And she was blonde, and she was just darling. Oh yes, that's another thing to do. When I talk to people, I'm person or the phone, blank, blank, I can sometimes describe what they look like and they go, oh, no, no, no. How can you do that? Well, I blame people. I just move out and I can see. I can't always tell authenticity, but I can tell coloring. Authenticity is not important to me because what am I? People look at me, well, what are you? Well, there is Portuguese, but my mother's family is American Indian, where my blue-eyed blonde sister with lots of curly hair took after the English Irish Scots. So people look at me and go, what are you? And I go, well, mixture. Heinz 57%. So anyway, I'm talking to people around the world, and this young girl was talking to me. All of a sudden, I got this flash. I went, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I saw her in a past life as a young 20-year-old, early 20s. And she was standing next to Mr. Ford, the inventor of the car. And I said, well, that's an odd thing for me to look at. And I was looking at them and thinking, why am I being shown this? And they all of a sudden they looked down and my vision went down to what they were looking at. Evidently, they were in a photo shoot and they had a crowd of people around them. And they had invented their first car. And it wasn't anything. It was just a motorized platform. And they had this handle that went up like this, where they could stand on it or put a chair. And they were making it go. And he helped Mr. Ford develop Mr. Ford's first car. I don't know who else did it, but he did. And I says, if it's possible, I described this all to her. I says, they were in a photo shoot because I can see a round group of people. So she and her husband went to the Smithsonian. Guess what? About a month later, she calls him back screaming into the phone. She says, I found me. You did? I want to go to the Smithsonian. I want to find that picture. They found a picture of Mr. Ford with a young man, shorter, because Mr. Ford was taller, dark hair. Both of them had white lab coats on, standing next to the first car. And she says, how's that possible? And I said, people say, how do you know if you're a new soul or older soul? When I blame with somebody and I fall into them, it isn't that I fall into them. I fall into the vastness of the string of lives that they have. So this young lady let me slip through her quantum physics, that switch that said to me, she wants to know this. And people say to me, well, how do you know what to talk about? How do you know what I want to say or what I want to hide? I says, if you want to hide something, honey, you can try all day for me to get it. I'm not going to. If there's something you're, as a living person, need to know, I'm going to get, because your spirit will show that to me. So this young lady, so young and beautiful, and they were so in love. They're just giggling. I never talked to a psychic before. Oh, I want to do this. Well, was it that what proved to them that maybe this kind of person is real? Find that picture did. Because people say, everything's in the brain. Well, how did I know about Mr. Ford? I wasn't thinking that. And some of the other ones that sound so loud to me was a woman, next story, everybody, was a woman that was a ballerina. And she had, it gives me, I just get so emotional. I saw this, what she would call an older woman. And she was twirling and twirling. And she was a ballerina. And she was in this grand hall with pillars. And the people were standing on the other side of the pillars. And the moment I saw that, I saw the streaming light come in on her. Oh, I got goosebumps just talking about it. Or I'm going to cry on you here. And in her mind, she was saying, this is my last dance and I'm going to do it for the king. I'm dancing for the king. And I was trying to get her to look at the king so I could see who it was. All I can remember saying was, he looked like he was wearing gold and beige and pretty, he was rounder, but he was Russian. And it was just amazing. And how long ago was this? I know. And I shared this with this 17-year-old girl. She starts screaming. And I go, everybody, I'm going to be really wrong. I'm going to be really right. Oh my God, Mom, come here. I want to tell you something. She was yelling. And Mom got on and she shared with me, I think the daughter might have been on too. She says, my daughter has always wanted to be a ballerina. She started when she was like 2 or 3 years old. The girl wants to be a professional ballerina. And I says, I wonder why this life had to be shown to you. That you had a level of grandeur, that you entertained the king of Russia. Oops, goosebumps, everybody. Oh, okay. So I see the note. Unfortunately, I don't remember all these. Sue, give me a hint which one. Sue Coop. Everybody, hello. She's in the chat room. Somehow Streamer wouldn't let her in, but you'll love her. You'll love her. Um, there is a connection between Ron, when he came to me, and Sue, who he had not met. And there is a past life. Well, I got to finish the story. Just a minute, Sue. Someone's telling me to finish my story. Who's doing this to me? Anyway, someone said, finish the story. So here it is. And the young lady who had been in dancing doubted the path she was choosing. And I don't know for sure. I think it was family. And family was saying, that's not a guaranteed future for you. And I only thing I could tell is that she was feel like she was very slim, um, and that she had been a ballerina. But I'm not going to put it on the mom. I'm not going to put on why, because she made you kids, anybody I talk to, please touch base. I want to know how this affected your life. Really, really, really. I would never meet this girl. She would live somewhere else. Cat, everybody. But she thanked me. The girl did. She says, you made me feel like it's okay to go forward. Cat. It's a big black one. And the problem is it jump on top. So just a minute, please. And I want to talk about the other one. The other gal was in her early 20s, and she was into fashion, and she was in New York, somewhere high, and just working her life to death. And she was also questioning her future choices. And I was talking to her, all of a sudden I saw, and please, anybody knows me, I'm not into fashion. Oh, I do have a Halloween shirt on, everybody, from the cemetery tours I did in Sacramento. Anyway, so write a note of which past life you're talking about, because I'm blank at the moment. Anyway, at that moment, I'm not into fashion, high-end fashion. I'm not into people who do the designing. I own no expensive purse. For heaven's sakes, I was to ride horses and be a runner. The best thing I can do is tell you what kind of running shoes I own, right? So anyway, I saw this woman, and if you're part of this lady's family, know that she's come back. And I described it a little. I'm 5'4", so this lady was taller than I am, and she called herself a willow branch, and she wore long black sleeve, sheath kind of dresses, and she had black dark hair. Dark hair. Was it black or dark brown? And she showed me walking, and I was so impressed. I went, she had, you know, style even wearing black. Well, this young lady said to me, "Oh, it's Coco Chanel." And I says, "Who?" This was about 15 years ago. And I says, "I know that name." And she's, "Oh, she was a big designer." And she says, "Well, how many years ago did she die?" I says, "Really, I have no idea." Spirit people tell me that 25 years is about, people come back the next day. In fact, I've had people talk to me. Grandpa dies in the morning. Their baby in the family is born in the afternoon. Guess who? Grandpa came right back. So I do feel like that's possible. One lady's mother-in-law died, and the spirit people told me that she's going to sleep for 100 years. And that was her last words to my friend Jenny. "I want to sleep 100 years. I'm so tired." So spirit then came in and told me and validated that this was going to happen. So when I told the young lady who wanted to be a fashion designer, I said, 25 years. Guess what? So a week later, the woman calls me back, the girl. So you can then find out, Google Coco Chanel. 25 years later, you'll figure out this girl's birth date. And then you can tell me how many years it's been since I talked to her, right? Uh, she was born 25 years to the year. 25 years. The month I don't remember, but she was born after, 25 years after Coco passed away. So Coco has come back in the form of a young lady in New York working in the fashion industry because she wasn't done. And that's not a negative statement. That's an encouragement that if you're in a profession that you love, not always is it good. So one day I was questioning this with a friend. I'm off track. I know it. I know it. I was talking about this to somebody. I says, I have, people don't know this to me. I have such loyalty to the universe, whether you call it blind faith or religion, or I so believe, no one can. Yes, I studied the Bible. I'm actually a real minister. I studied for 2 years and put 15 years in with the Spirit of Grace Church, UCM, Universal Christ and Master in Citrus Heights, California. I got my ministry in a Dr. Fisher out of Judy Fisher out of Florida, only because she was a little more liberal and believed in past life, future lives. And the Spirit of Grace Church did not want to go there. They were only Christ in one time. And I believe at that time when I got my ministry 2 years after entering this, I was getting stories. And so I was talking about the young girl, the fashion designer. And what that did, she called me up and she said, I told her, I said, Coco Chanel has not finished things. That doesn't mean that you can't in your life enjoy something. So one day I was talking to a friend. I said, I wonder why why I got into this. Clearly it's my destiny because I was a professional. I could have stayed with the telephone company. I was first line management at 35-ish, young. So the last 7 years, see, before I left it in 92, something like that. So anyway, I could have stayed, worked my way up to second or third level, second level probably, and had as much money in career and medical, but it wasn't enough. After cancer, I had to, cat number two, I had to have something that made my life purposeful. And I was telling this to a friend, and all of a sudden I saw myself, I want to be Coco Chanel. I want to invent the car. No, I saw myself as a Catholic initiate to be a nun. And I was on the hands and knees on this floor, scrubbing my little heart out. And I was mad because I couldn't talk. They told me to be quiet. Poop, can't do that. And I had wanted to assist the people in congregation, in the city, in the slum, in the streets. Oh, Joe. But anyway, in that life, I was very, very discouraged that my path was not going to work for me. And when I was scrubbing, all of a sudden it went black. So I don't know if she was ill. I don't know, but I've come back in this life as service. And I actually love this. I love that the discovery of joining new people and discovering what they're about and what they bring into this lifetime and what the path is about, even in the midst of throes of grieving, is who knows. Just recently talked to a young woman, and I was connected with her 25 years ago, and she had just become widow for the first time, and she had 2 children. And I told her the next man, she married him, had 3 children. She got widowed again. She came to me 21 years ago after this happened, and I described the man that would come into her life and she would fall in love with. She never believed me. Woman is crazy. She told her girlfriends. So she called me a few weeks back and she says, 21 years ago, I called you. The man you described, he showed up. She is a culture that would never date a Caucasian, especially a tall, blonde, blue-eyed Caucasian. And I have nothing against anything. We're all, without our skin, in my eyes, we're all just, but there's some groups that are, what attracts us, right? So what attracts us? And in her mind, she loves a darker skin, darker hair kind of a guy. And I can get that because I'm dark skin, dark hair, right? And Joe, anyway, she just couldn't believe it. And I said, you know why? Because it's a soul connection. And when you came to visit me, this connecting is so important to your path to help you determine future decisions that I saw this as a crossroads. You have to meet him. You have to relationship, whether you marry him or not. That's a choice I can't do today. That was 21 years ago. Now, why can I see that? It's because you decide what I'm supposed to see. Last link we had, Sue, which lifetime? Talk about TV. Talk about your TV time with Ghost. Just I just love Sue. I wish Ron were here. We talk on Zoom, just friendships. We talk in a restaurant, and Ron is always standing there. I love it. Who says there's not marriage after death? You can go on if you're young. You can have other relationships. Absolutely. That is your destiny. But Sue, as much as I love her, She's perfectly happy with Ron. I'm hearing him laugh. Where are you, dear? Are you here? So anyway, I'm connected to Sue because I'm talking to her. He just follows her around. He's so in love with her still. Is that possible? Yes. I was working out of an office in Fair Oaks, California, and a gal from Rockland came to visit me. And she had a wedding after her fiance was killed. And I don't know how it went, I don't remember, but she had a physical relationship after he died. She says, just because he has died, doesn't mean I don't love him still and I can wish to continue. I don't know how to make that. I didn't see anybody else for her for a while. And it's because they weren't done. Does that mean a widow of 30, 40, 50 years uh, will close the door to more? Hmm. That is a choice we have to make. There was a lady who widowed. Her name was Mary. She passed away. She was 83 when she came to me, and 82 rather. And she was tired of her husband, dead husband, being in the house. That didn't bother so much, but he had his mother with him all the time, and the mother she didn't like. So I came over and I talked sense into them. So weeks later, she said, "I've met Ed." "You've met somebody?" Now she was in love with her husband, but when she saw Ed, that soul connection was so strong. It would not have been that way, nor would she have paid attention of it if her husband had been alive. So they had some sort of agreement that the husband would check out when he did. And remember, this has been months because she had put up with her dead mother-in-law for quite a while. So when they finally got the house was clean. So I had gone over there, we visited. I think the house is clean. I went around. I talked to the mother-in-law, not the husband. So when the mother-in-law was ready to leave, the husband who was dead also, oh, mother's gone. Okay, now she can leave because somehow there was possession over the house because the son owned it or something. I don't. It's kind of strange. And she said to me at 83, she says, "I met Ed at church." Oh, Mary. Ooh. And she says, "I didn't know that at 83 I could feel 13 inside." And I go, "Is that right? Is really, I'm going to remember that for my ladies and gentlemen, that we have fresh love coming." Ed was younger. So I said to her, "Oh, you're robbing the cradle, 5 years. What's that? When you're late 70s and 80s, right?" She calls me and she says, "He died." Oh, Mary, at least you got him before he died and didn't show up dead. She laughed. And then she calls me back. She says, "Ed is having sex with me in the shower." I says, "How do you know it's him?" "Oh, his sides." And I laughed and I went, "Is that okay, Mary?" And she says, "It's the best I've ever had." And I went, "Oh, God, how do I explain this to people?" I said to somebody once, I said, "I never make up stories. You know why? Because the truth is funnier." Mary was a laugh. I loved her. I just loved her. And for her to talk to me about, I didn't like my mother-in-law. I want my dead husband gone, but I want her gone too. I walked from the house. I said, "Mother-in-law," whatever her name was. This has been quite a while. Oh, Miss Montgomery, I apologize for not knowing your name. First name, Mikalia. Beautiful name. I'm going to, the last link we had. Oh my goodness, Sue. Give me some more, sweetie. I know you had 20 questions we were going to do live, right? And we were going to answer questions. Anybody have questions for me? I don't know who is in StreamYard that, see, this is the first time I've done this. So everybody, patience with Sue and I. Hopefully next time StreamYard is better because, like I said, I'm getting little pop-ups that something's wrong. So at any moment, if I disappear, then we'll know why. Are you having fun with these stories? I'm full of them. Just like I can't hardly believe it. Uh, Flashes of past life, anybody can have them. Do you have to have a belief system first? Better. It's better. Do you believe someone like me when I talk about it? Like I said, I come from a Catholic, married Catholic church, and it was odd because I'd see spirit people walk around in the Catholic church. Kind of, well, one individual for sure that I remember seeing, and it was odd that he was not making fun of us, but he was kind of like doing this. And I remember thinking, "Is that right?" You know, have I spent the night in a haunted house. Honey, I'm living in one. Oops, sorry. Yes, I have. Yes. Not in a ghost investigation. I have spent hours and hours with Shar of California haunts, though. I've been involved with her as in remote viewing, as I did, and I got off track. Sorry. Port Orange Paranormal with George Lopez. He's on the Paranormal Channel, I think. And I did it 2010, 11, and 12. At that time, Shar and I had hooked up many years earlier at the Sacramento Cemetery. And I think I was involved with ghost investigations with her. So she would do a ghost investigation. George Lopez would do a ghost investigation. I'd only be online. So I was able to look at the location and see and tell them where to point the camera. And I remember Shar once said to me, I was yelling at her. I said, Shar, one step, put the camera up, take a picture. Their spirit is there. She says, you get me so flustered because you would see these people. I go, why can't you see them? She says, because I'm not you. Why don't you see what the person looks like? Because I could see them and talk to them. The hardest one would be Port Orange Paranormal's group. They had several groups, and they did Allegheny Insane Asylum. And that was for hours and hours because East Coast is 3 hours different. So to them, it was the middle night. California time. And I remember being exposed to the idea of spirits going insane. And it did bother me because if I can put my mind to the investigator and if I move up, I can see the person who is insane, at least to tell if they're male or female. Can they have a sense of me? Yeah, right. Another lady friend of mine, Karen, actually told me once, and it was like, Karen, you'll have to hear this. Tell me. She said I had picked up a spirit, and what I did, and go back to the investigation of the Salem Asylum, that really disturbed me because those people were crazy. Sorry, of course they were crazy. They were there, but they had done one more step. They went to the point of um, insanity, where someone doing an investigation would feel the sharp edges of their energy flashing or jumping around the room or attacking them because they were so insane and been insane for 50 years or more. You could interpret that as a demon. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've always said once to somebody that in all these years, 32 years, virtually almost every day, uh, family and friends do talk to me every day, but I don't work every day, but I do work a lot. I've never seen the ugliness of a demon. I've never seen and felt the ugliness of hell. So what dreams may come, Robin Williams, when he finds his wife at the end of the movie, she had committed suicide. That torment capsulated her in an environment of grays, blacks, and whites. And it was a frozen environment of dismay. So watching the movie was really good. Up to that point of finding her, it's not what I interpret as hell, stepping on people's heads. It was kind of gross. But anyway, yes, my eyes, but that capsulated look of her in dismay, that is hell. So if anybody reads Dante's Inferno, pretty clever guy. I feel like he had it. The lower level is frozen. You cannot move out of your emotions and your regret and dismay. To me, that's hell, not fire and brimstone. And we created ourselves. Um, oh, Patricia. Sue, thank you very much. How do you feel about looking at unsolved mysteries? So I can do a couple of those. I was part of the group of Find Me Two out of Arizona when I was there, Arizona. And it was a detective that retired. And I had a friend in Australia, and she was investigating one of the cases that this detective had collected missing people and children and all. And when she told me about the young man, I gave him all the description. I found out where I said where he was or where he had been. A lot of times when people are lost or picked up, people like me will pick up where they were last. It's like trying to find a lost dog. And the lost dog goes, oh, I know where I am now. That's what I'll pick up. I won't pick up the next 20, 30 feet. So, and so unsolved mysteries, we pick up what's allowed for us to pick up. It's hard to pick a body. because bodies shift in the wind and the debris. That's awful hard. Um, do I watch cop shows? Do I real? My husband really loves that 24-hour on the spot, every state in the union type of stuff, and I'll read the people absolutely. Um, Anything on TV that's live, I kind of want to stay away from because as they're talking, I can step into them. Duh, criminals and court actions. Duh, that's not fun. If I do it, I don't like doing it because I don't want to know. If you visit me, I'm not going to step into you because, oh, I do it for a living. I don't want to do it anyway. So unsolved mysteries is very exciting and scary at the same time. Sometimes you'll pick up something, sometimes you won't. Yes, there's been high profile cases. I have got information, but who's asking me? I'm not going to step up and volunteer. Well, who am I? I'm just an old woman now in California. Um, and if I've come up with something, I mean, how much life do I have? Which is hard. It's hard because I want to help everybody, and there's only so much I can do. Um, Unfortunately, there's ETs around us, and I think they vibrate in sync to us and vibrate out. I think they travel so fast in their energy level. I was just talking to somebody about this. Don't know if it was you, Sue. I think it was somebody else that there had been a UFO landing in Northern Africa, Arab country, I think, where a ship had come down and 3 tall 6-footers had gotten out of the ship and walking around. 2 of them got on board and the ship went boom. Hard to see GSI that one. Third guy, he's still walking around. He turns around and all of a sudden he's gone. Zip. That zip is what we don't see when they zip into our area here. I'm looking at the camera. Who is to say that over there people don't know me in the history books 500 years from now and they say, oh, that's a clever lady. Let's go back and visit her. And they're monitoring us and watching as tourists would. How would you like to go back to the castles of the 12th century and walk around inside? I think people from the future do it all the time. This is an interesting conversation. ETs, other planets, other planetories. Oh, they're here to protect us. What we witness of them destroying rockets with atomic bombs in them, they're not trying to help us. They're helping themselves. You know why? Because they live here. And they're taking samples of animals in the field, test the tissue to see how much we screwed ourselves up to this point. You know why? Because if we get to a place we're contaminating, if we contaminate the land, we're going to contaminate the ocean. They're not going to be here. They're going to go to another planet. And I think there's multitudes of spacefaring civilizations that go to young planets and reap the rewards of the cleanliness of that experience. And they coexist for centuries, thousands of years. How long? Who am I to say anything? But the sense I got was a selfishness. They're going to make themselves known for our benefit. They let themselves known because they're snooping on our lives. Can you imagine being able to get in a plane and go back to 12th, 13th century and see a castle? Well, why don't you go back further and further? Wouldn't you like to go to maybe the pyramids? I'd like to see how they're built. I would not waste any time if I could zip in and zip out and watch from a distance knowing I can't be seen. Who's to say we don't do that already? Yes, I have had experience with UFO peoples. I have a friend I kind of confide with. And I was saying I had this weird dream. And it was one of those aliens that are really tall. And he looked more antish, long eyes, long face, body was kind of lumpy. But he had on in this dream, he had on a silver blue tight, like a like something you'd wear getting into the ocean, wetsuit. And if anybody knew me, I wasn't scared. I was amused. I went, wow. And I said, you're so beautiful. Because he was. The contours of strength, the muscle, everything. Because I was an athlete, I noticed things like that. And I remember in my dream, him looking down at me, because I'm short and he was very tall, looking down at me like, did she say that? You're beautiful. And so I told this friend, and she says, "Oh my God, anybody else, I wouldn't believe it. But if you come so left field, of course you would say you're beautiful." And the next picture I have, I'm in what we call a big area. It's moon shaped. I mean, a sliver of the moon at quarter. And it's a hallway, and it's very rounded to a flat, very sparse, very gray. Like everything is gray, shades of gray. Was it metal? No color. And it was just open, open, open all around. It was huge. And I thought to myself, this is an odd thing for me to see. And then my friend said, "Are you that clever to design that?" And I go, "Probably not." And she said, "Would you like a past life regression to figure it out?" I says, "Not on your life. If it's a dream, keep it a dream. If it was real, keep it a dream. Maybe I don't want to know. If they want me to know, they'll come back and let me know. Because I don't know if it always serves us to know. Because they're going to do, and they're going to have access to us. Whether we design that and want that. Would I want them to do it again? I told another lady just today we were talking about it. I said, if they pick you up again, you have a health issue you'd like them to work with you on? I would do that. At my age, give me one of those protein drinks or protein shots that give me more energy at this age because I want to do more. Take advantage of it. So put that in your mind if you think you're being abducted. Don't go with fear because what they're trying to do is determine how healthy our planet is. I don't think it's because they want to help us or they would have already. What they're doing is destroy what destroys them. Is that wrong? Oh, heck no. We may do that in the future ourselves. Can you imagine having the ability to travel from cosmos to cosmos and find a planet and just be hidden and enjoy living there for a while? ET's among us, disguised or otherwise, thanks to I saw the feature on YouTube. I do believe they're here. Someone has said they're walking among us all the time. Why not? Why can't they disguise themselves? Don't women wear wigs and makeup? Heck yeah. Don't they want to look 30, 40, 50 years younger? Oh, of course. So who's to say they don't have mechanisms to flesh out a thin body or facial? We would never know. How about hats? Women with scarves around their faces. July 2nd, 1947, there was a UFO crash in Roswell. 4 little gray men were taken. What happened to them? Someone just asked me that recently, Patricia. Really quick, very interesting question. Um, in fact, it was just this week. How interesting you're talking about. Was that Sue? Were you talking to me? I do feel one of them survived and was alive for quite a while. Did they back um, engineer the unit? Absolutely. I do feel like there was quite a bit of damage to it, and I do believe it was real. When I think about it and I see the people on TV doing it, you can get goosebumps, but I get pulled into it and I can see the dirt, the ground being charred from it. So if I see charred like the ground, I remember, excuse me, so you have an investigation, people walking around, right? So then you talk to someone like me that puts them into that place. And the only thing I could see when they walk around was something that happened 50 years earlier. And what I saw was charred ground. And then when someone asked me about survival of one of them, and of any of them, I do get that one survived for a while. Would he die of eventually? If I put my mind to it, I almost say the environment. Like maybe he didn't know how to take care of his body, or he didn't get the right nutrients for where he come from, anything like that. But I do feel like they took everything they could to back engineer it. Absolutely. I think that's somebody said that's where we get fiber optics or something. Um, what happened to UFO in Roswell? I actually see it underground. It's buried in a not a bunker but a place. I think there's holding areas and things like that are taken and whisked away. Someone was talking to me once. A gentleman was doing some cross country travel, and I was talking to him about a carved out place in a mountain. And I do believe that's possible in underground, miles and miles and miles. And so there's areas where they keep those. Just as I'm talking to you, for some reason, somebody in the group must have done some investigation and has an idea that there is um, an area where they take these things and hide them. And I do believe that. Yep. Um, was he under military confinement? I want to say yes, and the reason is how he let this fella just walk around. I didn't know what he could breathe. Military confinement versus who? Who else would? If the military put a clamp on this, it would only have to be, it'd have to be the military. Though I do believe that being alive, there was a lot of people who saw him, like government peoples, people who didn't believe but who do needed to. And if they back engineered it, uh, who else could see him? I don't think he lived isolated. If he was isolated, it was only because he had breathing issues or food issues or something like that. Sue, how long were you wanting me to go tonight? I'm going to look up and see how. I love these questions. Unsolved mysteries, absolutely. And I do like talking about early America, not the gangster only, but people from the past, because I can put my mind to them and have shows on TV, and I say, "Oh, they think he was like that. Oh no, he was a rascal." So I don't know if I answered this. What would be your take on grief if those that have passed, especially those who have had extremely devoted relationships to those who have passed? The remarkable stories that we hear of seeing them. Absolutely. I think I did approach that. Um, in grief, as in what I do, we expel a lot of energy all the time. And so the more crying and the hysterical everything, you're giving that spirit your life force. And that's why people get so tired from the grieving process. They're giving their life force either to the universe, the room, all the relatives come over and they leave. Wow, I feel so much better being around that person who's grieving. That's because you stopped up all their life force. The spirit person can do the same thing. And so there's a lot of visions happening because of that kind of a thing. And as for the healing, if a person who's in grief can see the image, the whatever the spirit person can generate, that person has to believe their survival and that you will eventually go to them. Now, I'm not going to say I'm against suicide. I wouldn't do it. It's not my game. I don't know about the kids that killing themselves, but I do believe that if it's not the time that you pick a body and say, okay, that person's leaving by suicide, that's okay. This is a good time to get out. Was 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. But if you're not meant to die at that moment, guess what? You get to live with the results. And how many people have you heard about? I heard about this young woman. She had a new face. She blew her face off with a gunshot. They said, oh, she should have died instantly. You know why? Because it was so spontaneous that it was unplanned and it was not her time to leave. I do believe in that. Remarkable stories that we hear of seeing them. That's actually very true. And there is such a thing as soul connections, soul commitments, that if someone does pass and you're in the throes of grieving, say, this is not the end. I can love them again another lifetime. I can meet them, just like in the movie What Dreams May Come, when he finally connects with the wife. And he has pulled her out of her dismay, out of her grief of the life that she left. And she was successful at killing herself, so it was meant to be that moment. And he talks to her one day as they're in spirit land. And he says, would you like to go back? You want to do this again? And she says, yes. Flash, the next scene, there's two little kids, boy and a girl, on the deck on the lake. And they have little boats they're playing with. So the movie ends with that love being generated again. They've come together. I really believe that. How many times have some said to you, my husband said this to me, we lived in southern Arizona, and we have a really good connection, friendship. It's almost like it's no work to be together kind of thing. And we were living in Sierra Vista, and I had a opportunity to work on Tombstone, Arizona for a year. Oh, I could do a whole show on that. Oh my God. Wonderful, wonderful. Don't want to go down that road yet. I don't know how much time Sue let me talk. She's commentator here. Um, so we were down there one day, and he had come to Tombstone to see me. And we were walking around. That's one thing we really enjoy, just keeping each other company while we tourist. And he stopped and he went, oh, we've been here before. Yeah, I'm here every day, and I walk through town. No, this is more. So we got home, and I says, okay, spill it. What did you get? And he says, I saw us here. I says, you did? He says, yes, we're meant to be here. We're meant to meet and come back here and experience this place at this time. And people say, Tombstone only lasted 10 years. Well, Tombstone only lasted as a town for 10 years because it did burn down and had to be built over. But that area was very long lived before the town was established, the burning down, reestablished, and continued. So there's how many generations of people lived their life or partials. And he says we did. I'm not going to argue. Who am I? We get along really well. So it's a reconnecting, even though it was late in life. We've been married 21 years this May. So even though it was later in life, because we both had marriages, had kids, we were meant to reconnect. Maybe for the fun of it, or just relax as in getting older together. If that's all there is, it's pretty good. And so we get to love again. If you want that passion that can't keep my hands off that person, you recreate it. When you get over it, say, should we do it again? Should we find a loving couple that has that passion? Let's go together. And they recreate it. How fun is that? How fun is that? I'm trying to think of the gentleman, Patton, that claimed he was a Roman officer. And during his campaigns, he would study someone right in who I'm talking about. I know George Patton claimed to be and talked about his reincarnation life in the time of the Roman Empire time of Caesar. And he would talk about the campaigns, and he would read up on them. And he claims he was successful because all he did was replay the campaigns of 2,000 years ago. Wow. He had flashes of it. He believed it. So he had a life then. Did he have other lives? I don't know. But he had a life there as a military campaign. And he came forward to be Patton to be able to do it again. Google that, everybody. Tell me, was it that, should I have Googled there? Talk about your TV grave time. I did briefly, I entertained Sacramento Cemetery. I'm trying to think 13th of Broadway, 13th and H. It's this old cemetery down there. And I did it for 5 years, starting in 95 to 91. John Benton passed away. And so I did some tours after that. And the people did come, Channel 3, 10. They did interview me. TV grave time. I didn't do a lot of those, but people did show up. News and Review did some articles. The TV station at the time, I was kind of like a novelty act, like, what is she? And John Betancourt, the first time he took me out there, it was the middle of summer. It was 150 degrees out there. And you're standing there sweating. He says, find a story, find a spirit. Of course, anybody that does this knows that you work better cooler. And so the first story was a woman who was hunched over her grave. Very first story, and I've told it many times. I could tell you 50 stories because I seem to remember too many. And woman was saying, all three of my babies are buried here. And she had grieved for so long, the hump of her energy was all I could see. Yeah, boom, went over to that grave, and 2 babies were listed on that stone. And I says, I never back out what I say. 3. So a week later, we went through and did like 10 more. At the time, that night of the cemetery tour, it was the middle of summer, so about 150 people would show up. At the end of October, 250. It was way fun, guys, way fun. And he says, I didn't believe her. I didn't believe her. And we've had a lot of psychics here, mediums. And he said the cemetery, as you see the street now, went out. The cemetery went across the street into the parcel where the people are building tombstones. I don't know if they're there now still. But they wanted to put a boulevard through here. And I think it was 8th Street. And they moved all the bodies. Her baby, when they moved to the area, the first baby, the infant, was buried in the ground underneath the tomb makers. So when you die, they create not the tomb, but the headstone. They moved the baby, and it was buried with the first of the second and the third. So the second baby died, they took the first baby and moved it. And so John found that there had been 3 infants under that one headstone. Well, we did 5 or 6 each year from 95 to '01. And so a lot of people remember that. And that was on TV quite a few times, and the Hispanic station too. That was fun too. And TV, um, I was on a radio a lot in Sacramento. Armstrong and Getty. I was on once to be the pet psychic, and it was so much fun. They had me back 3 more times. That was so fun. Um, and then KCRA was run by the friend of Rush Limbaugh. Oh, my mind just went blank. Write it in, somebody. Um, anyway, so yeah, I've been on lots of radios and just did all kinds of stuff. I want to go down if it goes around. Come on, everybody, give me, and so let me know if we've talked about. Good 1 hour. Okay, looks like we're not getting the underground facilities. Are we talking U.S. military or ET or both? The U.S. military has underground facilities where they're hiding those vehicles that have crashed into the planet. And I see the areas open and watch my eyes off shift, everybody. I see a lot of debris. 47 wasn't the only time, nor the only crash or the only recovery in those states of the United States. Now, we're not talking Japan or Russia, because I'm sure they have the same kind of numbers. Do ETs live here? Absolutely. How many have we seen that the military says, oh no. So NASA today has commissioned 16 individuals to start studying those ETs that can't, space things in the sky, to try to just understand those that we can't identify. Really? How long has it taken now, right? So I just saw that today. I imagine it'll be on coast to coast eventually. So I do see ETs living underground. Yes, absolutely. Then you would say to me, well, what about in the beginnings? And they had all these tunnels underground and they call them ant people and all those. I can't address that. I'm talking about the ones that are alive to now and live in the ground, in the oceans. Absolutely. They're from somewhere else. And they're living here because they like our planet, and the water's not contaminated, and we have water, and we have sky, we have blue skies with beautiful white clouds. They live here because they love it. They're not here for us, they're here for them. And if we get in the way, they'll destroy what could kill us, but they're not necessarily going to save us from ourselves or stop us from killing each other, because what we do by killing each other is we put less stress on the planet. Oh no, really? What will kill the planet is our nuclear, and they will probably stop it. One of them, I saw an article, and I kind of just didn't disagree with it, that the atomic bomb affects every level of our stratosphere and goes further. If our little tiny Lucille Ball show, radio show, the Shadow Knows, can go into outer space forever, what makes you think the vibration of atomic bomb couldn't also? Uh, 7:30. Oh, closing on 90 minutes. I hope you had fun with me tonight. Soon I will be doing more of these things. Go to Nancy Matz Psychic at YouTube and hit subscribers. Sue Coop, you can hit her subscribers. So if you don't see us on one, we see us the other. Psychic Nancy Matz Psychic Medium, Psychic Nancy Matz on Facebook. Hit those so we can get the notifications out. I also sent out notifications on meetup.com, talking to ghosts and spirits. You could find me there, because I'm going to do this. I'm not going to. The subscribers are important, because if I'm going to write 8 books plus coming up, I've spent decades keeping things, so I can, at this time in my life, if I don't have the interest, I'm not going to write them. So show me the interest, and I'll share with you what I know after 32 years of doing this, because it's amazing. Someone was talking to me about my attitude about life, and I says, I live with a level of giggle here, a little bit of a giggle, because I can now, and this is crazy, I can flash 3 lifetimes ahead and dozen lifetimes in the past and go back to them. How fun is that? Are you bored? No. Do I live with peace? Yes. Do I want my family to die, my grandchildren? Oh no. Great grandbabies? Oh no. Don't you? No. Don't. but I have no control. Does it help me control my emotions and feelings? Makes me more acceptable to things I can't control. Do I like the way the things are going? Do I like the shootings? Absolutely not. Do I have control? Who's going to talk to me? I can only live my life. We can only take one breath at a time and one step at a time. If you want to campaign and be out there and do that, in my years, the hippie movement, I have friends. I have a darling friend. I love her. She's in England. She was active and she looks still hippie-ish. And I love her for her uniqueness. When the 60s were happening, I graduated from high school. I was a little early. Um, and I got I was one of those, went to summer school all the time. But I graduated early and then went on to college. And I fell in love with my high school sweetheart. We dated 4.5 years and got married the second day, the next day after 2-year college. That's how kids did it those years. All 5 of us in the Catholic clique got married on the same day, right? So I was involved with school. I was involved with raising babies. Yeah, I had children early in life. So I wasn't really part of it. Oh, Patricia, how sweet of you to say that. I have Indian blood and it's helped a little bit, a little bit. Um, I really appreciate that. I hope you're making reference to and I love talking to people about this. No, I don't have hours in the day to have everybody call me up, but if I'm doing a session or if I'm doing a show, I'm just amazed all the time. How much grief do you stay with you forever? Do you think you're in a hole and a well and that you can't see the top of it? Why don't you turn that around and say, I'm at the bottom of the well because I'm not seeing something. I'm bottom of the well because I'm supposed to experience this and get what I can from it. Turn it around and say, okay, if I'm experiencing this, is what I'm supposed to learn. Am I here to help somebody or am I supposed to see this is okay? I don't like it. Can you imagine what I felt like at 39 having cancer, stage 3? It was awful. To top it off, it was um, Thanksgiving. I had diagnosed December for Christmas. I had surgery. January 5th of 88, I had appendicitis. I was hospital for 3 days. They didn't want to take it out because they were afraid I was going to spill, you know. And then toward the end of January, I got a call and they said, we have to have more surgery. They weren't done with me. I went, scared me. You know what it did? It woke me up. It made me realize that maybe I wasn't living. I was so busy with life that I forgot who I was. We were sports people. We were into 4-H. We were into everything for the kids. And we were running places as fast as I can, but there was no inside contemplation of who we were as people. And I knew I couldn't stay there. My ex is alive, and I take half the responsibility for not working because I got lost in what we were doing and not who we were as a couple. And I'm sure he would say the same thing. So I knew that to me at 39, I would have to change my life. And I turned 40 in April, at the end of all my treatments, and I left on July 1st. And then a year and a half later, the doc said, I think you're going to be okay. We'll just monitor you for 15 years. And if you last 15 years, then I guess that can come back. And that's when I said, thank you for my life and my sanity. And if you wish, I'll work for the rest of my life. And that's when the universe sent me the spirit of grace. And because of those things, it's called synchronicity situation. Sue, she kind of got on tonight. This is what we were talking about. There is synchronicity in everybody's life. You know why? Because we're part of a bigger picture. I call it the spider web of life. We're all connected. Just like a great grand city with all the streets connecting so you can get to one part of town to another. If you play your part right, the people in the next block over who are supposed to play their part, we domino to the ultimate end of the cosmos. There are no mistakes. Synchronicity situation or synchronicity or coincidences are all part of the bigger picture. I know that every time someone says, I was thinking of you and you called me, or you went to the store and you ran into somebody you haven't seen for 10 years. I know someone told me that one. Who says you accidentally met that person? It was meant to be. Synchronicitous energy. We're always connected. We make things happen. Okay, Sue, we did go 90 minutes. I don't see any more questions. Did have fun with you. And I'm sorry that Sue wasn't on. You'll love her. She and I just laugh at each other all the time. It's wonderful. We will do more predictions. She was lovely to put in what about Tesla? Mm, I think he was a visionary that had high level psychic ability. A secret. I'm always inventing. Yeah. My ex-husband was into biology. So one child was into biology. I have an engineering brain, though I'm an artist, so it worked out good. My specialty was manholes and conduit. In the years I was doing that was the big deal. So my son became a space engineer. So I'm always inventing. Am I inventing or am I tapping into future inventions? So I've been seeing solar forever, ever. And I saw solar as a pull down like a shade, lightweight, easy to maneuver. This year, this couple last months, they now have created advertising solar that's pliable, better than they had before because it ripped and tore. Now they have it, they can get it in a roll. The next step is to put on house, but yet we have glass that is absorbing like solar. So they're going to create ways for us to have it movable. You don't have to spend bazillion dollars one house. You just take it from house to house. It's not going to be sheets. It's going to be in a roll. So I call my son up and says, I've invented something else. He says, Mother, write it down. Because what I might be tapping into is future. Tesla did that. I think he was a visionary. Like, oh my gosh, the fellow from the past that had the Michelangelo, all his drawings of the helicopter and the submarine. He was a visionary. Was he visionary or did he tap into future? Absolutely future. Okay, great show. Say goodnight, everybody. This is good night. This is good night. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.